Hello everyone and welcome to Total War Through the Ages. In this episode we're going to be showcasing the first of our defeats, which is a little bit sad, but rest assured it will be fairly few and far between. So, here we go. We've got moving some more forces around. We're reinforcing Sidon there, and we're actually going to end up with a fairly large army garrisoning that settlement. More so than Antioch, because Antioch at this point is in less danger than Sidon, because Sidon there's actually an enemy army in the field. Meanwhile, our army in the north is advancing up, and we're going to be aiming for one of those cities, probably the one in the north, because it's a little bit weaker in terms of its garrison. But either way, we'll be attacking one of those. And here, as you see, we're just mostly worried about that army right outside of Jerusalem, as you saw there, which will be. I was kind of expecting them to come up and attack Sidon. Now, I wasn't quite sure where they actually went, so I didn't find them. It turns out I'm pretty sure they actually went to this small city to the right there that we captured earlier, and then they captured back. And the army I can't remember what the name of that city is, the one directly left of Antioch. That army, I'm not worried about it because it's mostly like peasant levies, like levy spearmen. Or not levy spearmen, but like I can't remember what they're called, but they're basically the worst units that the Eastern Roman Empire has. They're like the peasant levies, and I'm not really worried about that. Again, coming back to the north here, I considered hiring mercenaries, but I ultimately decided against it just because I can get my own troop units for cheaper than I can for mercenaries. So there wasn't a need for them at that time. Though having some actual heavy infantry that I could have got they're like mercenary legionaries, basically. That actually was a little bit tempting. But as we see, we're just kind of getting some more reinforcing forces ready, moving some more generals up towards the front line. I want to make sure our generals are mostly on the front line, because that's where they're going to be needed primarily. And that's the massive army that was outside of Jerusalem. So they're going. That's what I'm still worried about them in terms of besieging Jerusalem. And then here, our army in the north, we bring them up and. Well, there's an army there. They do outnumber us. That's a little unfortunate. So, seeing how they outnumbered us, and this army did, I basically, I canceled a bunch of the retraining of the units and stuff so that I would have enough money to purchase some mercenaries. So I bought one of the heavy infantry, which are the mercenary legionaries. That's basically what they are. And then I hired a unit of mercenary horse archers. Now, the main issue with this army, is, as you will see, is I don't have that many units of cavalry compared to most of my other armies that I've had. I actually have a lot of infantry and skirmishers. Like, it's weird. That's not very often that happens in this campaign, but this was the one instance, or one of the main instances where it certainly did happen. You also saw earlier, I, again, keep moving. I'm not really going to reference it that much, but just I'm moving my generals closer to the front line because that's where, again, they are needed. Now, right there, we got kicked out of our city. That's really annoying, and I hate it. And you will see later on in this campaign, that gets really frustrating. But for the time being, that's the first time it happened. And so the first time it happened, I was like, so we got kicked out of the city. No big deal. Anyway, moving on to this battle here, we do get attacked. We do have, I actually think we technically outnumber them, like, by a little bit. Either way, we only have 5 units of cavalry, counting our general. 1 unit of mercenary horse archers, 1 unit of horse archers, camel riders, and our heavy cavalry, and then a unit of heavy cavalry, the Calabarni, or Calabini. I don't remember how to say those guys' name, but our heavy cavalry, and then, of course, our general's unit. So, horse archers coming up here to counter the enemy horse archers. Now, the other interesting thing about this battle was that the Eastern Roman Empire actually had more cavalry than we did. They had more horse archers than we did. So, yeah, this was definitely going to be a tough battle going in. And as you guys can probably already guess, this is, in fact, the first defeat of the campaign. And just to clarify, I'm not counting defeats like of battles that I auto-resolve or something like that. I'm counting defeats in only the battles that I actually fight. So this was the first time that we actually lost a battle that I was in command of the army. And one of the biggest problems right here is that I was focusing a little too much on my cavalry because I knew that I had to use my cavalry to full effect. Unfortunately, we did have a lot of our infantry routing. We are able to actually defeat the enemy infantry force, though, through a combination of some heavy cavalry charges and just our infantry was able to help out there as well. Our infantry was able to hold enough for our heavy cavalry to come in, rather. But ultimately, we aren't able to pull this back. The main issue here, as you see, we're able to eventually break the enemy infantry, but they just have too much cavalry, and I lost all my light cavalry earlier on in the battle. I should have, in hindsight, what would have been a smart idea is to keep all of my light cavalry in reserve and force their cavalry to fight my infantry. But again, they're horse archers, so that's hard. But I should have had my heavy cavalry, our horse archers, my general and the other heavy cavalry unit, go up against the enemy light cavalry initially, and I should have saved my light cavalry in reserve so that I could have actually had them towards the end of the battle if I'd been thinking ahead. But again, hindsight 2020 and all that. As you see here, we still have a corps of infantry and 2 units of heavy cavalry, though they only have like 20 guys a piece. I mean, no, not a piece. They have 20 guys total, if that. So yeah, we're not, and the main issue here is I kept trying to catch the enemy out, but unfortunately our heavy cavalry was just so slower, and it's not like a ton, but they're slow enough compared to the enemy horse archers that we were never able to catch them. So at this point, I pretty much was like, yeah, whatever, we're not going to win, our infantry's going to start routing. Well, I was hoping that our infantry could actually hold and our general could get a countercharge off, but it didn't happen. All our guys do end up routing. Thankfully, our general doesn't die. That was actually one thing I was worried about. So otherwise our army withdraws. We did bloody that army pretty badly. Even though they did win, we did take a lot of them with us. So we're actually going to be pulling this. So I contemplated here pulling this army farther to the north, like kind of back the way it came. Or I was like, well, I already have another army starting to form in the north, so I'm going to just pull these guys down south. And I went ahead and disbanded the mercenaries because we can't retrain them. So once they've taken casualties, they're going to stay with those casualties. So I went ahead and get rid of them. They're just a drain on our coffers unnecessarily. And then, of course, we are going to be eventually attacking Sidon and taking it back, but that will not be for this episode. I do apologize. This is a very short episode. I do apologize for that. It's mostly just down to the timing of the episode. I had to cut off the episode here, and you guys will see why at the beginning of the next episode, because I cover some stuff that I wanted to cover at the beginning of an episode, not in the middle of it. So either way, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to check back for more, and as always, thanks for watching.